Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin, back again with another reaction video, and it has been a while since we have done a reaction to a recitation. And so, you know, like, I would love to see a day where we could, like, at least do a little bit of all of them, because I know some of them are, like, hours long. Like, to go through, like, you know, chapter 2, the biggest chapter in the Quran would take forever. But today we're going to be looking at chapter 68, which is titled The Pen, and this is done by the Merciful Servant.
I thought a funny thing was when we were looking for a recitation to do, we were like, we've already done some of these more than once.
Oh yeah, because it seems like the popular ones seem to get redone. Yeah,
67 and 37.
I got them written down in a book somewhere. I can't remember exactly, but yeah,
so we've done a couple of them more than once.
Yeah, I think we're on.
Or at least one of them.
We've done like 5 of them. So yeah, I'd like to get through. But you guys seem to really enjoy them out there. I also a new thing I'm bringing to the table is I got my Quran with me here. So I'm gonna, if you see me look down, I'm just kind of looking at the words and, you know, so for some talking points when we stop it.
This is totally fresh for me. This is a complete reaction to this. And also, I would suggest, other than the ones we've done so far, which is 37, 67, this will be 68. If there's any good recitations, suggest some good recitations.
And some people have. You know, it's hard to remember every comment you get.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know in the comments. But anyway, guys, won't keep you waiting. Let's get into it.
نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم فستبصر ويبصرون بأيكم المفتون إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين فلا تطع المكذبين ودوا لو تدهن فيدهنون ولا تطع كل حلاف مهين هماز مشاء بنميم مناع للخير معتد أثيم عتل بعد ذلك زنيم أن كان ذا مال وبنين إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين سنسمه على الخرطوم إنا بلوناهم كما بلونا أصحاب الجنة إذ أقسموا ليصرمنها مصبحين ولا يستثنون فطاف عليها طائف من ربك وهم نائمون فأصبحت كالصريم فتنادوا مصبحين أن اغدوا على حرثكم إن كنتم صارمين فانطلقوا وهم يتخافتون ألا يدخلنها اليوم عليكم مسكين وغدوا على حوض بل نحن محرومون قال أوسطهم ألم أقل لكم لولا تسبحون قالوا سبحان ربنا إنا كنا ظالمين فأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتلاومون قالوا يا ويلنا إنا كنا طاغين عسى ربنا أن يبدلنا خيرا منها إنا إلى ربنا راغبون كذلك العذاب ولعذاب الآخرة.
Well, we're about halfway through on this one. One of the things I've picked up kind of there as looking at the scripture itself is that the English in here isn't exactly the same as there. So I don't know why that is or if it matters. But as I was kind of like going through this, and I looked at this earlier, I know you didn't, but I highlighted some verses that kind of stuck out to me. And so I want to take a look at verses 8 and 9. Verse 8 says, "So do not obey the deniers. They would like you to compromise, so they would compromise." And for some reason, that reminded me of a story in my past because, not a Muslim, but as a Christian, there's kind of like this unspoken thing, at least I always felt like there was that, people can hand down to you like tools and ideas of how to live life and stuff like that, but you're never going to get it as good as if it comes from a Christian. Like, the only people who are really going to have your best interest at heart are brothers and sisters in the faith. And that
this was the sense that you got.
Yeah, this was the sense I got when I was kind of in the...
Not the actual truth, just the impression.
Yeah, just the impression. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe that was kind of like, subconsciously put in there. I don't know why I kind of picked that up. But when you really think about it, if you believe that like your way is the way, and it's the truth and the life, and there's no other way but it, only the people who can really like help you out are going to be those who are like you, those who have similar ideas and stuff like that. And that was embedded in me a long time. It was like 36 years to crack that nut to realize 36 years to crack that nut to realize that there are other people out there that are like just the same as me, that love like me. They like, it's not like other people couldn't hurt, but like what I'm trying to say is that I always kind of like held them as outsiders. They were always on like a wall on the outside. The only people that were really allowed to penetrate with anything they could offer or say were those who were like me and believed the same things that I believed. And that was a big life-changing thing, from going from just that inward bubble to accepting that there are other people out there that are exactly like me, that are, that care about me and love me just the same, regardless of what they believe or not, and what they would want for me. Because it kind of says like, they're going to lead you down like a path, right? There's like, it's going to take you to a bad path. So yeah.
There was something about like they'll glance at you with glances that say he is crazy, or something like that. You know what it reminds me of, for Pete's sake? I remember back in the day, like when we were going to Christian church and there would be youth things, and then we were always trying to like, because The Matrix was like a big movie at the time, we were always trying to like find parallels between The Matrix. And I was always like, well, one of them is that everybody that isn't saved or everybody that isn't woken up out of the Matrix is potentially an agent. Yeah. Because there'll be like a guy walking down the street and then the agents could possess them, right? Yes. And I've heard Christians talk this way, where it's like, well, if they're not saved, then they could be an agent of the devil. Yeah. And so it creates this kind of like paranoia. And I've heard Christians say, well, I wouldn't trust that person's advice. If they're not a Christian, I wouldn't trust them. Yeah. So that's a different religion than this. Christianity is a different religion than Islam. Yeah. Islam. And
I'm just saying this is what it reminded me of.
And you're right. It reminds you of that same sort of paranoia. Like, you can only really trust people that believe the same way as you.
Yeah.
And I, in my revolution, when I was like going through my like changing what I wanted to believe, I would go up to people that were like ostensibly a different religion than me, and I'd be like, "Hey, you're a different religion than me. What do you think happens to me? You know, like, do you think me, like, I have people I love. Am I going to roast in hell just because I believe a little bit different than you?" I'd be like going around asking these questions, trying to figure out what everybody believes. And just to kind of piggyback off of
I think the thing that kind of like changed my mind on that was a little bit of exposure, because whether or not I knew it, I was in a bubble. I was only like consuming things that validated my own internal beliefs, and like I had built up this imaginary wall that I didn't even know I was doing. It wasn't till after breaking out of that I actually recognized that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're halfway through. We'll continue on and finish this off.
للمتقين عند ربهم جنات النعيم أفنجعل المسلمين كالمجرمين ما لكم كيف تحكمون ما لكم كيف تحكمون أم لكم كتاب فيه تدرسون إن لكم فيه لما تخيرون أم لكم أيمان علينا بالغة إلى يوم القيامة إن لكم لما تحكمون سلهم أيهم بذلك زعيم أم لهم شركاء فليأتوا بشركائهم إن كانوا صادقين يوم يكشف عن ساق إلى السجود فلا يستطيعون خاشعة أبصارهم ترهقهم ذلة وقد كانوا يدعون إلى السجود وهم سالمون فذرني ومن يكذب بهذا الحديث سنستدرجهم من حيث لا يعلمون وأملي لهم إن كيدي متين إن كيدي متين إن كيدي متين أم تسألهم أجرا فهم من مغرم مثقلون أم عندهم الغيب فهم يكتبون فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تكن كصاحب الحوت إذ نادى وهو مكظوم لولا أن تداركه نعمة من ربه لنبذ بالعراء وهو مذموم لولا أن تداركه نعمة من ربه لنبذ بالعراء وهو مذموم فاجتباه ربه فاجتباه ربه فجعله من الصالحين وإن يكاد الذين كفروا ليزلقونك بأبصارهم لما سمعوا الذكر ويقولون إنه لمجنون وإن يكاد الذين كفروا ليزلقونك بأبصارهم لما سمعوا الذكر ويقولون إنه لمجنون ويقولون إنه لمجنون ويقولون إنه لمجنون وما هو إلا ذكر للعالمين.
Well, there was something there that I noticed that they resaid some verses over and over again. I didn't know you could do that in recitations, but I guess you can to emphasize the point even more.
Some of them are very emotional.
Yeah. I want to come to verse 51. Also, before I say anything, whoever recited that, who did that, did a bang up job. You know, did a good job. So kudos to that for Merciful Servant. Verse 51. Those who disbelieve almost stab you with their glances when they hear the message and say, he is crazy.
Or mad.
I want to, just looking at the viewer, for anyone who is a full-on believer, I say, I don't think you're crazy. And there's, like all of us, I think there's good reason why you believe what you believe. But I would say the same thing to the Buddhist, the Christian, the atheist, the agnostic. That, you know, there's a good reason why you believe what you believe. It's the life experience that reality is doled out to you.
Yeah, people don't just believe stuff for no reason.
Yeah. I think and there's lots of things we've talked about on this channel that contribute to that, right? You know, there's like the nature versus nurture, environment, and all those things that lead you to choose the path that you decide to choose. I don't know if you want to say anything off of that, but I got another verse I can point out too also that kind of stuck out.
Yeah, before I forget it, one thing I happened to be noticing while that was going on was the return to this, like, these parameters, like, you know, that it's like these qualifiers, like it's a disgrace to be this way, and, you know, don't be like this person. So this, like, farmer type mentality, like strike when the iron's hot. Like, you missed the opportunity. You don't want to miss that opportunity, man, because it could be a disgrace. Yeah. And I had to go through so much process, like leaving behind a lot of the dogma of my past faith, where you'd have verses rolling around in your head that it's like a man acts like this and a man acts like that, and I had to be like, well, I'm not a man then. Don't call me a man. I know what I am, but I'm not a man then. You know, and people get such a bad taste in their mouth. But I just mean, you get hypnotized sometimes by these qualifiers that, like, you ought to be this way or else you're this. They're found within many different religions, and I only, you know, if you are working on breaking free from some of that dogma, sometimes it can take some time to, like, go through all that stuff. And and sometimes you have to find examples that prove the opposite. Like, there's Bible verses that are like, a man who's this way will never have riches. Yeah. And then you got to be like, well, wait a sec. Can I think of examples of men that aren't that way that found riches? Yeah, there for sure are. Yeah, you know, this guy here, Ron White, was an alcoholic for most of his career and was rich and famous. You know, it's not always the case. Yeah. And sometimes you have to, as much effort as you put into proving those verses true in your mind over and over and over, telling you, you know, reinforcing your dogmas. Yeah. If you are interested in getting out of that, only if you are, no pressure if you aren't. But if you are interested in getting out of those dogmas, you have to build a counter story. You have to start being like, wait a sec, this proves that otherwise, and actually do the work, because you're hypnotized in some sense. You're geared into thinking one way.
Yeah.
You know, you might get suspicious.
Not just you out there. We all have our...
Anybody!
Yeah.
You know?
We all have our...
Go to a party when I was younger, you know? Are they looking at me? I feel like the evil in them recognizes the holy Christian in me.
Yeah.
You know? Who knows what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a pressure. There's a
Maybe.
social pressure. There's a pressure simply to believe things. Depending on where you are and what part of the world, people are like, we need you to make a choice on believing things. So, you know, what are you believing in this today? And I was talking with someone recently, someone who's close, and it was like, you know, they were just talking about like, you know, I felt like there was like this inner pressure to like, you should believe in things, like believe in this thing or believe in, and it's always what they kind of deem as like the thing to believe in, right?
I'm pretty sure I've had people be like, line in the sand, say exactly what you believe right now.
Yeah.
You know, and then like people looking at you like, it better be what we all think.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the heck? I've had to walk away from situations, man.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I've had to walk away from financial situations because I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not like conforming. I'm going to be an individual.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and
whatever.
The last verse I wanted to point out was verse 15. That says, when our verses are recited to him, he says, myth of the ancients.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to me, again, that's another thing. I wouldn't say myth of the ancients. There might be some things in there that I see as mythological, or that I can't validate whether or not they're true or not, because I wasn't there. You know, I didn't see it. I think a lot of people who like stand righteously for certain things, you know, they weren't there either. I'm like, why are, like, I kind of get why people get so hung up on, like, you know, supporting narratives and stories that they didn't experience. Usually it comes from the environment that they grew up in and all the things they were told to believe. But I don't jump on things that I didn't really experience. There's no point in me, you know, like, I can't prove that Muhammad saw angels. I can't prove that.
I do. If I'm being honest, I do have to fight a little bit of feeling like sometimes some of these verses remind me of the verses that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I have to fight to go, this is a different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't label people because of my own upbringing, the examples that my mind places over top of it. You got to look at it with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And also,
which is hard, man. I really try. It is hard sometimes. I catch myself judging all the time.
yeah, and I don't want to, you know, come with this video here, especially in particular. I don't want to come as like a dividing sword and cause people to like not be a group. You know, just because I say I'm going to be an individual. Even individuals, it's important. We're social creatures. We need each other.
Yeah.
Don't burn any bridges that you wish you hadn't burned, you know. Family's important, community's important, all that stuff's important. But having your own autonomous opinions, at the end of the day, being able to be like, you know, I know what's going on here. Yeah. You know, I've got a grip here, and I'm not just being, only if you're skeptical. Only if hopefully people come here because they don't want bull crap. They don't want to be shoveled more of the same. They're looking for a fresh insight. Yeah. And so if you are, take it easy, calm down, you know what I mean? It'll be okay. It's amazing what you can get used to. Yeah. You know, new insights, sometimes they feel scary to begin with. Yeah. But you can get used to it, and then all of a sudden you're soaring.
Well, anyway, guys, we love our Islamic audience out there. You guys are awesome. Thanks for your support. Hopefully you liked our reaction on this. Just being honest from our perspective. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everyone till next time,
Stay spiritual.